The notion that Jeremiah 1:5, Psalm 139:13, and Luke 1:44 indicate that biblical authors all thought that full legal and moral personhood began at conception is an absolutely laughable misreading of the Bible. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and let's start with Jeremiah 1:5.
Dan McClellan dismisses Jeremiah 1:5 as a unique boast. This is a profound failure of literary analysis. If only Jeremiah is known and consecrated by God in the womb, you are essentially proposing a two-tier humanity, a few divinely intended persons versus a mass of biological accidents. This is a privation of human nature. In any coherent metaphysical system, if it is possible for one human to be a person in the womb, then personhood is an inherent trait of the species. You cannot know or consecrate a non-entity. To acknowledge God's knowing is to acknowledge an existing person. Dan hides behind its just poetry defense to strip Psalm 139 of its weight. This is a shallow, modern contrivance. In the ancient world, poetry was the primary vehicle for ontological truth. To suggest that poetic description of God knitting a child together has no bearance on that child's value is academically dishonest. He creates a false dichotomy between the poetic and the legal. Historically, religious law and religious poetry were deeply intertwined. If the creator is the active architect of a child in the womb, that child is a divine work, not property. You don't write hymns of praise about the biological development of property. McClellan's first breath argument is a materialist reduction that ignores the Bible's narrative logic. In the Annunciation stories of Isaac, Samson, and John the Baptist, God establishes the identity, the name, and the legal obligations of the child before they ever take a breath. In the case of Samson, he was bound by a Nazirite vow while still in the womb. A piece of property cannot be bound by a legal and spiritual vow. If the identity is fixed by God, the person is present. To ignore this narrative framework is not just an error, it is a refusal to read the text on its own terms. Dan claims the New Testament only supports personhood at the quickening. He is flatly ignoring the Greek text of Luke. The author uses the word brepos to describe the babe in the womb in chapter 1, and then uses the exact same word to describe babe in chapter 2 in the manger. There is no linguistic shift or change in category. A refusal to read the text idiomatically and exegetically is an admission of dishonest scholarship. Dan's PhD does not excuse him from the requirement to be faithful to the text's internal logic. He isn't presenting the original view, he's just presenting a materialist one and calling it history. Dirty Mormon.